My parents walked into my beach house with boxes and announced, "This is your brother's vacation home now." I said, "The 14M house I bought with my settlement?" Dad scoffed. "Stop pretending family wealth is yours." The sheriff standing at the gate cleared his throat, then read the line that made Mom drop the keys. "This is your brother's vacation home now." My father said it the way he said everything, with the particular confidence of a man who has spent 63 years being agreed with. He was standing in the doorway of my beach house in a polo shirt I had never seen before, holding a cardboard box with tape on the top, and behind him my mother June was carrying a lamp. My brother Reed was behind her with another box. They had driven 2 hours. They had not called. The smell hit me first. Salt air and the particular warmth of a house that has been sitting in afternoon sun. I had opened the windows that morning. The curtains were moving. I looked at my father. I looked at the boxes. "Come inside," I said. He did. He set the box on my kitchen counter, the one I had chosen from a catalog 3 years ago. The one that cost more per linear foot than I had made in a month during my first year of construction work, and he looked around the room with the proprietary ease of a man surveying something he has decided belongs to him. "Reed needs a base of operations on the coast," Victor said. "The business is expanding. It makes more sense for this property to be in family use." I said, "This property is in family use. I use it. The $1 house I bought with my settlement?" I said. Victor scoffed. The sound was short and dismissive, the sound of a man who has already categorized what you were about to say and found it irrelevant. "Stop pretending family wealth is yours. We raised you. Everything you are came from this family's foundation. The money you got from that case, that belongs to this family as much as it belongs to you." June set the lamp down on my dining table without asking. She was already looking at the walls, the way you look at walls when you are deciding where things will go. Reed was in the doorway. He looked up from his phone long enough to look at me, then at the room, then back at me. "Caden, relax. You barely use this place. I can actually build something with it. Coastal properties are appreciating 12% a year right now." He said it the way he said everything about property, with the confidence of a man who has never paid for a property himself and therefore believes he understands them better than anyone who has. I looked at the framed check stub on the wall beside the window. Settlement amount, $1,900,000. Dated 3 years ago. I had framed it not out of pride, but out of a specific kind of need, the need to have something on a wall that proved the 3 years of pain and legal work and nights at that kitchen table had actually happened and had actually been mine. My father had not looked at it yet. I said, "How long have you been planning this?" Victor set his hands on the counter. "We discussed it at Christmas. You weren't there." I had not been at Christmas. I had been in the hospital with a kidney stone, which my family knew because I had texted them. Nobody had called back. "Okay," I said. My father looked at me. He was not used to okay from me. He was used to arguing, or to silence that he interpreted as acceptance. Okay was new. "I need to make a call," I said. "Give me 10 minutes. I walked out to the deck. The ocean was doing what oceans do, moving. Indifferent. Enormous, I called Vivienne. She answered on the second ring. "They're here," I said. "How many?" 3. Victor, June, Reed, boxes. Deputy Carr said he could be there in 15 minutes. Tell him 12. I put the phone in my pocket and stood at the railing for a moment. The salt air came in off the water. Below me, on the narrow strip of beach, 2 children were chasing a dog. I went back inside. Before I tell you what happened in the next 12 minutes, I need to tell you what the beach house actually was and what it cost to get here. I was 29 when I fell. The scaffold was third-party equipment on a commercial job site, a 12-story office building going up on the east side of the city. I was a site supervisor at that point, 7 years into construction work, making decent money and sending some of it home every month, because Victor had mentioned the family business was going through a difficult phase. The scaffold was rated for 6 men. There were 4 of us on it when the anchor bolt on the west side failed. I fell 11 feet. 3 broken ribs. a fractured right wrist, a hairline fracture in my left ankle that did not show up until the second imaging session. I spent 9 days in the hospital and 6 weeks in a recovery apartment that I paid for out of my own savings because the workers' comp dispute was still pending. My family visited once. On the third day, Victor stayed 40 minutes, told me to rest up and get back on my feet, and left. June cried a little and told me the apartment smelled like hospital. Reed sent a text that said, "Hang in there." Uncle Philip was there when they arrived and was still there when they left and did not leave until visiting hours ended at 9 p.m. He had driven 3 hours from the coast. On the second day, when my right hand was bandaged but functional enough to hold a pen, Philip slid a legal pad across the bedside table. "Write down everything while you still remember," he said. "Every detail, every name on that site, the time it happened, what the anchor bolt looked like when you saw it last." I wrote for 4 hours. Those notes became the foundation of a case I spent 3 years building. I passed the bar on my second attempt 2 years after the accident, while working as a paralegal during the day to cover my expenses. I took the site owner to civil court. I represented myself not because I could not afford counsel, but because I had spent 2 years understanding the case better than any outside attorney would have. The jury awarded $1.4 million. I framed the check stub because it was the first document I had ever produced entirely on my own, from injury to judgment, and I needed to be able to look at it. My family thought I had gotten lucky with insurance money. They did not know I was a licensed attorney. Nobody in my family had ever asked what I was doing during those 3 years. Victor had mentioned once that the settlement seemed like a lot of money for a fall. June had asked if I planned to share any of it with the family. I had bought the beach house instead. My brother Reed was 31 and had been described at every family event for the past 8 years as the one with vision. Vision, in practice, looked like this: a leased Range Rover in a color called Santorini Gray that Reed described to relatives as a business vehicle, though I had never seen him drive it to a business meeting. A beach Instagram account at Reed Marsh. Coastal that had 1,100 followers and featured photographs of coastlines, sunsets, charcuterie boards arranged on driftwood, and sunrises over water. Many of these photographs had been taken at my beach house during the 3 times Reed had visited. He knew the light at my deck railing in the early morning. He had posted that light to his account without tagging the location. Because the location was mine, and tagging it would have required acknowledging that he did not own it. His company, Marsh Properties LLC, had been registered 4 years ago at a family dinner I was not invited to. Victor had described it afterward as a milestone. The company held 3 properties, 2 rental units in the suburbs, and a commercial development lot that had been pending permits for 2 years. Reed described the permit complications as the usual bureaucratic friction that comes with ambitious projects. Victor described them as evidence of Reed's patience and strategic thinking. June would tell relatives that Reed was playing the long game. Marsh Properties had generated $47,000 in rental income the previous year. Reed's personal expenses, I had reviewed the filings, carefully ran to approximately $8,000 a month. The math was not complicated. The Range Rover had been a gift from Victor. Not a loan. Not a family investment. A gift. The down payment on the first rental property had been $62,000 of family funds. Reed had described this to me once, in passing, as the family believing in the next generation. I had been the next generation too. I had not received the Range Rover. I had received "that's a lot of money for falling down" when I told them about the settlement, and I had received silence when I was in a recovery apartment with a broken wrist and workers' comp in dispute. I had sent $800 a month home during those 6 weeks. Victor had used the phrase "a family pulls together" when he asked me to do it. I had pulled together. Then I had spent 3 years quietly becoming someone who understood exactly what documents like Marsh Properties business filings meant and what to do with them when they contained something wrong. I had requested the filings 6 weeks ago. I will tell you what I found in a moment. Here is the thing my family did not know. When I passed the bar 3 years ago, I did not tell them. Not because I was hiding it, I simply understood by that point that my family would find a way to make it about something else. Victor would say I should have joined a family business instead of becoming another profession. June would ask if I planned to help Reed with his property contracts. Reed would ask if I could review his LLC structure for free. I told Uncle Philip. He bought me dinner and said, "Now you're dangerous." I did not tell anyone else. I practiced for 18 months at a small personal injury firm before Vivienne Okafor, and I opened our own practice 2 years ago. Marsh and Okafor Personal Injury and Civil Litigation. 8 attorneys. 31 active cases. A reputation in the county legal community that had taken 6 years of consistent, meticulous work to build. My family thought I had a legal consulting job I had picked up after the settlement. They did not know the name of my firm. They had never asked. Victor, at the last family dinner I attended, had described my career to a cousin as some kind of office work Caden does. This is the part where I need to tell you about the loan document. 6 weeks before my parents arrived at my beach house with boxes, I received a letter from a commercial lender I had never done business with. The letter referenced a property at my beach house address as collateral on a commercial real estate loan. Outstanding balance, $380,000. Borrower, Marsh Properties, LLC. Co-signer and property owner representative, Victor James Marsh. Victor is not the property owner of my beach house. I am. The deed is in my name. It has been in my name since I bought it. Victor had signed a document representing himself as the owner representative of my property to secure a commercial loan for Reed's business. He had forged his relationship to the property. He had used my house as collateral without my knowledge, without my signature, and without any legal authority to do so. I had the letter for 6 weeks before they arrived with the boxes. I spent those 6 weeks building the case. There is a version of my family that exists in photographs. Victor in his polo shirts, confident and broad-shouldered. June smiling at every gathering. Reed with his arm around someone at a coastal restaurant. I am in some of these photographs. In many of them, I am at the edge not because the photographer placed me there, but because that is where I had learned to stand in relation to this family. Let me tell you how that happened. I was 19 when Victor borrowed my first car. I had saved $4,200 working construction summers for 3 years to buy it a used pickup that ran well and was mine in the specific way that the first thing you buy entirely yourself is yours. Victor needed something to drive Reed to his road test because the family car was in the shop. I said yes because 19-year-olds who want their fathers to think well of them say yes. Reed failed the road test. On the way home, he sideswiped a parked car in a parking lot. The damage to my truck was $3,100. Victor gave me $600 and said, "We are not a family that keeps score." I paid the remaining $2,500 myself. I did not say anything about it for 16 years. I was 24 when I fell off the scaffold. My family came once. Victor said, "Get back on your feet." June cried. Reed texted. Uncle Philip stayed 9 hours and gave me a legal pad and changed the direction of my life, though none of us knew it at the time. I was 28 when Victor threw a dinner to announce Marsh Properties, LLC. He had invited 12 relatives. He had not invited me. I found out from my cousin 3 days later. When I asked Victor about it, he said, "You were never interested in the family direction. We didn't want to make you feel left out." The exclusion was delivered as consideration. That is the thing about Victor. He was never cruel in a way that was obvious. He was cruel in a way that came wrapped in something that looked almost like concern. I was 33 when I told my family about the settlement at a Sunday dinner. I had not announced it, I had simply mentioned it, the way you mentioned something you thought the people across the table from you would want to know. 3 years of work. $1.4 million. A case I had built from a legal pad and a broken wrist in 9 hours with Philip. Victor set down his fork. He looked at me. Then he said, "That's a lot of money for falling down." June changed the subject. She asked Reed about the development lot. Reed asked if I was going to invest in the family business. He was already calculating. I could see the calculation in the way his eyes moved not at me, just slightly past me, toward a number he was doing arithmetic on. I said I was thinking about property. That was true. I drove to the coast 2 weeks later and walked through the beach house on a Tuesday afternoon and put an offer in the same day. 4 rooms. 4 items on the walls. The settlement check stub beside the window. I had been building this museum for 18 years without naming it as such. When the loan document arrived 6 weeks ago, I understood that the museum was complete. It was time to close it. I need to tell you what Victor actually did, because the boxes were not the betrayal. The boxes were the announcement of a betrayal that had already happened. The loan document was 42 pages. I read it the same evening it arrived. Commercial real estate loan, $380,000, issued to Marsh Properties LLC for the acquisition of a development lot. Section 4. Collateral. The beach house. My address. My property. Listed as security against the loan. Section 7. Authorized signatures. Victor James Marsh, described as property owner representative. Victor is not the property owner. He has never been the property owner. He does not appear on the deed in any capacity. He had signed a document for a commercial lender representing himself as having authority over property that belonged to me, authority he had invented, signed for, and submitted without my knowledge. If Reed's business defaulted on the loan, the lender had a legal claim against my house. I read that section twice. Then I put the document down and sat at the kitchen table for approximately 20 minutes without doing anything, which is what I do when something has moved from the category of family dysfunction into the category of legal matter. Then I called Vivienne. She pulled the filing the next morning. The loan had been issued 4 months ago. Reed's LLC had drawn $280,000 of the $380,000 already. The money was gone into the development lot purchase. The remaining $100,000 was available to draw. The lender had conducted a title search on the property. The title search had found my name. They had accepted Victor's representation that he was acting with owner authorization. He was not. This is fraudulent misrepresentation to a lender, Vivienne said, at minimum. Possibly wire fraud depending on how the disbursements went. I know, I said. What do you want to do? I want to do it right, I said. All of it. At once. We spent 3 weeks preparing 4 separate filings. Trespass notice. Civil suit. Permit complaint to the county office. Referral to our accounting contact at the IRS regarding 3 years of fraudulent dependent status. I had found that in the tax records Vivienne pulled. Victor had been claiming me as a dependent on his family business returns for 3 consecutive years, reducing his tax liability by approximately $47,000 total. I had not lived with my parents since I was 22. I had not been financially dependent on them since I was 19. Victor had been monetizing my existence without my knowledge, while telling me to get back on my feet. We filed everything on a Tuesday morning. I called Deputy Carr that afternoon. The boxes arrived on Saturday. I went back inside. Victor was standing at my kitchen island, looking at the built-in shelving with the expression of a man already deciding what to remove. He had turned the lamp June set on my dining table so it faced the window. He had been making aesthetic decisions about a house that was not his for approximately 10 minutes. Where did you want us to start? Reed asked. He was still on his phone. You're going to want to put the boxes back in the car, I said. Victor turned. The managing patience expression again. Caden, let's be reasonable. There's someone at the gate who needs to speak with you. June looked toward the front door. Who? Before I could answer, a car door closed outside. Victor looked toward the front windows. A sheriff's vehicle was parked at my gate. Deputy Leon Carr was standing at the gate in his uniform, hat in hand. He had not come through the door. He was waiting at the property line, the line that was mine, in the way that law enforcement waits when they know exactly where their authority begins. There's a deputy at your gate, I said. Victor walked to the door. Reed followed. June set down what she was holding. Victor went outside. I followed at a distance that was not close. Deputy Carr had 3 envelopes. He looked at Victor. Mr. Victor Marsh? Victor straightened. That's me. Miss June Marsh? Mr. Reed Marsh? Reed had come out behind his mother. June's hand went to her collarbone. Sir. Deputy Carr said, I have a notice of trespass for the property at this address. The notice has been issued at the request of the sole titled owner. He opened the first envelope. He cleared his throat. He read from the document. The sole titled owner of this property is Caden Marsh. Victor Marsh, June Marsh, and Reed Marsh have no legal right of possession, no authority to enter, and no authority to transfer or assign this property. Any person remaining on the premises after 30 minutes of this notice will be subject to arrest for criminal trespass. Deputy Carr folded the document. June dropped the keys. Not slowly. The key ring left her hand and hit the stone path at the gate with a sound that was too sharp for what it was. She looked down at it. She did not pick it up. Victor looked at me. This is my son's house, he said. His voice had moved into a different register, still controlled, but with something underneath it that had not been there in my kitchen. I am his father. Sir, Deputy Carr said, the title shows a single owner. I need to ask you and your family to vacate within 30 minutes. The room was very quiet. June's hand was still at her collarbone. She had stopped moving entirely the way people stop when their body is processing something faster than their mind can keep up with. Reed looked at me with his mouth slightly open. The phone was at his side. He had stopped looking at it. Victor's face went through something I had not seen before. It moved from authority to confusion to something that was trying to become anger, but did not quite get there, because the anger required a target, and the target was standing calmly 4 feet away, saying nothing. You did this, Victor said. I did not answer. You called a sheriff on your own family. I called a sheriff on people who entered my property without permission and are named defendants in a fraud case I filed 9 days ago. Victor turned to Deputy Carr. This is a family matter. Carr was patient. Sir, I understand. The court will be the appropriate place for that conversation. Right now, I need you to vacate the property. Victor looked at the boxes on my counter. He looked at the lamp June had set on my table. He looked at me. Victor turned to face me. Deputy Carr was still present. June was at his side. Reed was 2 steps behind. Victor said it the way he said things he was certain about, with the particular volume of a man who has decided that the audience around him validates what he is saying. You didn't earn this. His voice carried. Deputy Carr did not look up from his notepad, but he was listening. You fell down on a job site and got paid for it. That is not the same as building something. This family built something for 60 years. You got lucky and you bought a house with insurance money, and you think that makes you different from us. He stopped. His jaw was set. It doesn't. You exist in this family's story. This house exists because of who we raised you to be. Everything you have is built on this family's name. Deputy Carr looked at his notepad and said nothing. Reed looked at the stone path. He did not look at me. June was looking at the keys on the ground in front of her. She had still not picked them up. I looked at my father. The property was purchased with funds from a judgment I won in civil court, I said. The case was Marsh versus Holloway Construction. I was the plaintiff and the attorney of record. The deed is in my name. The case number is on file with the county clerk. You can look it up. Victor stared at me. You're a lawyer, Reed said. It was not a question. It was the sound of something restructuring. For 6 years, I said. Deputy Carr had a 4th envelope. He had not mentioned it when he came in. He produced it after Victor's speech, after June dropped the keys, after the particular silence that follows a sentence like the one Victor had just delivered. Mr. Marsh, he said, looking at Victor this time, I also have a notice of civil complaint. You and Reed Marsh are named as defendants in Marsh versus Marsh, filed 9 days ago in county civil court. The complaint alleges fraudulent misrepresentation of property ownership to a commercial lender, unauthorized use of a property address as loan collateral, and fraudulent tax filings. Victor took the envelope. His hands were steady. His jaw was set. He was working very hard to remain the version of himself that was in control. He opened it. He read the first page. Then the second. His eyes stopped moving. I watched his hands. They had been flat on the envelope when he opened it, and they stayed flat And then something happened to them. The deliberate flatness became a different kind of flatness, the kind that is not controlled, but empty. Like the decision to perform steadiness had simply switched off. The third page was the one that mattered. It was a copy of the loan document, page 7, section 7. Authorized signatures. Victor James Marsh, property owner representative. Victor looked at that page for a long time. June had picked up the keys. She was holding them with both hands now, not quite sure what to do with them. Reed had sat down on my couch without being invited. He was staring at a point on the floor about 18 inches in front of his shoes. The commercial lender has been notified, I said. The loan is under review. Pending investigation, the remaining credit line has been frozen. Reed's head came up. The development lot purchase is not affected, I said. That money is already dispersed. The lender's interest is in the collateral, which is this house. You can't do this, Reed said. I didn't do anything, I said. Your father signed a document representing himself as the owner of my property. The lender accepted that representation. I filed a complaint. The legal system is doing what legal systems do. Victor set the papers on my counter. Carefully, the way you set something down when you need your hands free. He straightened. He looked at me. He looked at his 63-year-old face, looking at a son he had described as lucky, as a man who had fallen down and gotten paid for it. And he understood. I could see the understanding arrive in his face the way weather arrives. The way you can see rain coming before it gets to you, that the son had been a licensed attorney for 6 years and had spent 6 weeks building a case against him and had said nothing and had smiled and had said, "Give me 10 minutes. He picked up his box. He looked at June. She picked up hers. Reed stood up. They walked out of my house. I called Philip that evening. He answered on the first ring, which meant he had been waiting. How did it go? He said. They left, I said. The deputy? Professional, clean? Philip was quiet for a moment. I could hear him somewhere, with background noise kitchen, probably the radio he kept on while he cooked. You know, he said, I still have the legal pad. What? The one from the hospital. You filled 12 pages. I took it home when you were discharged. Thought you might want it someday. I sat with that for a moment. 12 pages. The accident. The anchor bolt. The names on the site. The time. I didn't know you kept it, I said. You were going to win something with what was on those pages, Philip said. I could tell. I didn't know what. But I kept it. He had kept a legal pad for 8 years on the theory that his nephew was going to need it someday. Thank you, I said. Don't thank me, he said. I just handed you a pen. After I hung up, I stood at the deck railing for a while. The evening was coming in off the water, cooling things down. The curtains were still moving. Reed's commercial loan was frozen by the lender pending investigation into the collateral documentation. The remaining $100,000 credit line was inaccessible. The development lot he had purchased with the initial disbursement was not affected, but the permits for the project on that lot were a different matter. I had filed a complaint with the county permit office 3 weeks earlier. A licensed attorney in good standing, flagging a conflict of interest in a property transaction involving a pending permit application. The permit office put Marsh Properties LLC's application on administrative hold pending review. Standard procedure when a formal complaint is filed. Reed showed up at my office on a Tuesday morning. Not the beach house, my office, the one with the name on the door, the one that required him to have looked up where I worked. He sat in the parking lot in the Santorini gray Range Rover for 22 minutes. I could see him from the window of my office on the second floor, the car parked slightly crooked, the engine running the whole time, the exhaust visible in the morning air. He did not come inside. He did not call. He sat in a $72,000 leased vehicle in a law firm parking lot for 22 minutes, and then he put the car in reverse and drove away. I watched him turn out of the lot onto the main road. Then I went back to the brief. There is a version of that moment where I felt something satisfaction or relief. or the particular warmth of watching someone understand that the thing they thought was going to go one way is going the other. I did not feel that. I felt the specific flatness of a man who has spent 3 years building something and is now watching it do exactly what it was built to do. It was not exciting. It was simply correct. I went back to the brief. The family dinner happened on a Thursday. Victor had called an emergency gathering 7 relatives, June's sister, 2 cousins, Victor's brother. He had framed it, June told me later through a text she probably should not have sent, as getting the family together to address a misunderstanding. Uncle Philip was there. Victor had been speaking for about 12 minutes, laying out his version of events, the settlement money, the house, the overreaction, the legal system being used as a weapon against family, when Philip pushed back his chair and stood up. He was not a man who made speeches. He set his napkin on the table, which was the whole of it, and said, "I was in that hospital room the day Caden got hurt. I stayed 9 hours. Not one person at this table called that day. Not one." He picked up his jacket from the back of the chair. "Victor, you told your own son that he fell down and got lucky. That boy built a legal career while he was healing, and none of you noticed." He looked around the table. "I don't know what misunderstanding needs addressing here." He put on his jacket without hurrying. He did not look at Victor. He looked at June briefly, the look of a man who is sorry for the right person and not the wrong one, and then he walked out. The front door closed behind him. Not slammed, just closed. 4 others left within the next 10 minutes. June's sister gathered her things quietly, making a comment about needing to get home. A cousin said she had an early morning. Victor's own brother stood up and said good luck with it. Victor in a tone that was not a compliment. 2 others followed without explanation. Victor's face, across the table where he had been sitting with his narrative and his authority and his version of events in which he was the reasonable father of a difficult son. Did something I was told about later by June when she texted me at 11 p.m. on a Thursday night, which was not something she had done before. She said, "He sat very still." For a long time. The room got quieter, and he sat very still, and he did not speak. Then he asked her to clear the table, and he went to his study and closed the door. He stopped talking. He looked at the empty chairs, and then he sat very still for a long time, not moving, not speaking, just sitting in a room that had been fuller 5 minutes ago. Victor left a voicemail on a Saturday afternoon. I did not answer. I was at the beach house, on the deck, reading a brief I needed to review before Monday. He started confidently. The voice was the one he used when he had prepared what he was going to say. Measured, authoritative, the voice of a man who was accustomed to being the last word in a room. "Caden, I've been thinking about this and I think we need to talk. What happened was a misunderstanding about how family assets work. Your mother and I have always considered your success to be part of this family's success, and I think you misread the situation." A pause. "The lawyers are making this harder than it needs to be." If you would just pick up the phone, his voice changed. Not broke. Victor would not let his voice break, but something shifted underneath it, the way ice shifts before it cracks. He stopped for a moment. "I don't understand why you're doing this." He did not call back. I listened to the voicemail once. Then I forwarded it to Vivienne with a note, "Save for record." Then I put the phone face down on the deck, railing, and went back to the brief. The IRS referral had been accepted for review the previous week. Victor would receive a letter. The fraudulent dependent filings, 3 years, $47,000 in improper deductions, would take time to work through the process, but they would work through it. The civil case was scheduled for a preliminary hearing in 6 weeks. The permit hold on Reed's development lot had entered its 3rd week with no resolution date given. The commercial lender, on review of the fraudulent collateral documentation, filed its own separate fraud referral with the county. Marsh Properties LLC had its business account flagged pending investigation. Reed could not draw on any existing credit lines during the review period. The development lot he had purchased sat idle. 3 weeks after the boxes. I was at the beach house on a Sunday morning, early, before the beach filled up. The salt air was doing what it always did coming in off the water, carrying the particular combination of brine and distance that I had spent 3 years of legal work earning the right to wake up to. I made coffee. I stood at the kitchen window. On the counter, 6 feet away, was a folder. Inside it were 42 pages the loan document, the title search, the copy of the deed, Victor's signature on page 7. Next to it was my phone with the voicemail I had not deleted. Next to that was the draft of the civil complaint that would have its first hearing in 37 days. I looked at the check stub on the wall, $1,400,000. The number I had come to after 11 feet of falling and 3 years of building. The number that Victor had described as lucky. The number that had paid for the kitchen counter he had set his box on. The tile floor where June had dropped the keys. The deck where Deputy Carr had stood with his 4 envelopes. I thought about Reed in the parking lot of my firm, sitting in the Range Rover for 22 minutes, not coming in. I thought about Victor at that dinner table, sitting still in a room with empty chairs, not speaking. I thought about Philip, 8 years, a legal pad, a drawer somewhere in a house on the coast. I drank my coffee. Through the window, the beach was beginning to fill. A family was setting up chairs near the waterline, a father in a hat, 2 children running at the water, a woman watching them with her hands in her pockets. One of the children fell and got up without looking back. I watched them for a moment. Then I went to my desk and opened my laptop and began preparing for the preliminary hearing. The house was mine. The case was mine. The morning was mine. I had built this. All of it. On 12 pages of a legal pad, written with a bandaged hand, 9 hours after my family had gone home.